And as always, we're going to start with our recap, which we do cut out and host separately on YouTube for your viewing convenience. So if you find yourself just on the recap video, we will have a link to our main episode linked in the description below. But alas, my friend, would you like to take us off here?
Yeah, so this is episode 67 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. And this episode was called Bloody Flowers. And the episode picks up following the battle with, I think, called the Devour Demon from the previous episode. And the party's sort of just taking a breath for a second, really taking a short rest to have a little bit of conversation on really the state of things. And we have most notably FCG, who has sort of kind of like a meta moment. There's been this conversation, these sort of details back and forth on, are we saving the gods? Are we not saving the gods? Do we care about the gods? Can we just agree that lewdness is evil? And finally it comes down to FCG basically being a massive god stan because of his connection to the Changebringer, and actually asking everyone to raise their hands and says like, all right, how many of you are pro save the gods? No one raises their hands except for FCG. And though we see Orem kind of like a little bit of a shy, like, well, you know, I'm not sure. So then FCG, honestly, it felt like if, not to be rude, but it honestly felt like someone being like, hey, who's religious? And then like taking it upon yourself to like convert everyone.
Yes.
That's kind of what it felt like. FCG was like, well, hang on then, like we need to talk about this. And they have a bit of a conversation, and then FCG is like, all right, let's vote again. Let's get, and I think it was Chetney who was like, yeah, I'm Team God now. I changed my mind. It was very like Always Sunny-esque, by the way, of the science is a liar sometimes thing. Anyway, there also a little bit of a teasing moment coming from Sam Riegel, where Laudna mentions that she and Imogen were able to talk things out, and Sam is kind of joking like, oh, what happened? Like, trying to get them to share about the big kiss, which they don't. They're just like, things are good. We talked everything out. And then finally they're like, all right, well, let's get going. Let's keep traveling looking for these flowers. So they keep heading through the Gray Valley. Matt explains a little bit of the history about the Gray Valley, which we've talked about on the channel, and that this was the last stand of King Drassig, who fought against Zan Haldore, and how King Drassig had relied on this bargain with a demonic force to try to win, but unfortunately lost, and the land was cursed as a result. And also as they're traveling, they're seeing like sort of, it was kind of Malesmere-esque, these spirits of fallen soldiers who seemingly are sort of walking the battleground. It's also around this time that they spot in the distance what seems to be some kind of structure built into a cliffside with these black smoke, which Matt's mentioned this black smoke coming up over the tree side a number of times. Seemingly, this is the origin of that black smoke. And Chetney takes a big whiff and realizes that this seems to be the smell of burning flesh, of people. It's people meat, apparently. Around this time, Matt asks for a stealth check. The party fails, and we go into combat with these two shadowy bird-like creatures that we saw in the previous episode, which I think Matt called them Vrox.
Yeah, I think so.
That swoop in and combat ensues. In combat, we typically just cover the high points. For the most part, we're going to see, I think it was Ashton who knocked one to the ground maybe by like jumping up in the air and just like cracking it. And then Chetney's going to move over to grapple it. Imogen and Laudna are basically going to shoot the other one out of the sky. And for the most part, it's a pretty quick couple of rounds of combat before the party is victorious, and they continue on again towards this structure in the distance. As they head towards this structure, they're moving quickly because they hear more Vrox that are coming to aid their fallen brethren. And Chetney actually uses something. What was it called? Grim psychometry. To basically, he rolls a nat 20 and basically sees this structure as it was previously a temple to the Platinum Dragon. It seems to be this last bastion in the land designed to protect against demonic invasions. Well, what ends up actually happening though in this vision is he sees what appears to be a massive battle, one of the towers falling, and Matt informs him that this happened only 3 days ago. He tells the party this. The party decides we should probably move pretty carefully up to this structure, the Iridon Bastion. And the party actually splits into 2 teams. Team stay on the ground and approach slowly, and then team approach from the cliffside above and try to descend down on it. So the party split up. They move closer to this now ruined temple, and they basically see imps and demons all over the temple, as well as a few cages with some humanoid creatures who are shackled inside. They also spot this dark bird-like furry creature, almost like a owl bear on 2 legs is kind of the impression I got, that sort of seems to struggle to walk on 2 feet and is holding this glimmering, beautiful rapier. I think it was a rapier, maybe a sword, and who's shouting orders to the other demons. FCG casts, I think, some kind of language spell. I don't have it in front of me. But basically finds out that this creature is saying to basically finish the ritual sites, which these little ritual stones are being built around this fallen temple. And then also is saying that they're basically preparing these humans for a feast, which does not sound good.
Yikes.
Party up top decides to descend down to one of the towers. And that is where we go to break.
All right. So we pick back up and basically rolling initiative with these demons. It's basically on. So as always, I'm just going to try to hit the highlights here. And to set the stage, which Blake basically already did, but we're at this, ruined temple bastion,
Right.
bunch of demons and
I forgot to mention a certain character that maybe you want to, as you're setting the scene, you can mention this other character that popped up as well.
Yeah. So where Fern is, they can see. I think this is what you're talking about.
Yeah, she's team approach normally, I guess.
Yeah. So she sees like in one of these kind of like caves, sort of, this like figure kind of in the shadows that seems to not be like your typical demon, and so they're like, wait, like what's going on with that? But more on that in a second. So lots of demons, cages with prisoners in them. We're rolling initiative. So one of the first things that happens is Aurum looks in one of these cages and he sees a female soldier of the Platinum Dragon and also a Tempest Blade gnome. And Laudna, with a natural 20, is able to start picking the lock on this cage, while Fern climbs up to investigate this humanoid figure she just saw. So she goes up there and she's like, who are you? Like, we're friends. Like, we're both against these demon guys. Like, let's be cool. Yeah. And she actually hits a 30 on her persuasion check. So this entity steps forward like into the light, and it is like a devilish type of humanoid. Yeah.
Drop dead gorgeous.
And he says, we're not friends, but for now we're not enemies. And so more on that later. But combat's going on. Like I said, a couple cool things. Imogen casts minute meteors for the first time, which is a really cool spell. So that was cool to see. And this devil, like I mentioned, he's running around in combat as well and just dealing out massive damage on these demons.
I think he was a paladin, and they got divine. For those of you who play D&D, you know the power of a divine smite paladin. I think he did 80 damage in one attack.
Yeah, it was just bossing people.
Yeah.
So this leader demon that Blake mentioned ends up calling out to sorry, I missed my place where I was in my notes here. The demon leader, as combat continues, actually tears into Imogen, dealing over 50 damage to her. And she's up, but basically only barely. In response to this, Orym climbs up on this demon and basically slashes at its arm, which successfully disarms the sword
Mm.
that the demon was carrying, causing it to tumble down into the ground below. Orym then uses a superiority die to kind of like swoosh with Imogen to get her to safety, adding 9 to her AC and basically yelling at Laudna, like, hey, get her out of here. Like, Imogen's looking really rough.
Yeah.
And then there's this great moment where Laudna is like, hey, Imogen, do you trust me? You trust me,
Yeah.
right? And of course, Imogen says she does. And Laudna throws herself and Imogen kind of off of this tower that they're fighting on. But
This
she
is like,
casts. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I
No,
didn't mean to, I
no.
just ruined the climax of what you're saying.
I was just saying she casts Featherfall, and so they kind of float to safety down below, at
I was
least
gonna
safety for the time being.
I was just gonna say this is like one scene I immediately was like, I want to see this animated because it was
Oh yeah,
such a cool moment.
that's gonna be great. Um,
So
so they float down. Imogen does chug a health potion, so for now she's like out of out of super danger. But around the same time, more of those flying Vrox come in to join as well. So combat continues. This demon leader actually jumps off the tower to chase Imogen and Laudna and bites down on Imogen once again, this time KOing her. And like he's chewing her in his mouth essentially. But as he's getting hit on by the rest of the party, he actually does spit Imogen out, and Laudna immediately runs over and like gets in a defensive position, kind of protecting her unconscious body. Meanwhile, Fern, who's kind of on the other side of the battlefield still, transforms into a bird and picks up FCG to carry them over to Imogen. And once in range, FCG blasts out a healing word to get her back up. And when she is up, she quickly attacks the demon, but then immediately casts invisibility on herself and Laudna. Meanwhile, the boss devil guy is still just tearing up the smaller demons all over the battlefield, and him and Chetney kind of have a little bit of a back and forth. But Chetney makes his way towards the sword that the demon leader dropped. He runs by, picks it up, and at the end of that turn, he has a voice enter his mind that says, rise in glory, take what you've taken, and together we will do great things.
much to the
Well,
parties.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody being like, not again.
we'll be talking about that for sure. So, combat continues. More damage is done to this demon leader, and it eventually teleports across the courtyard and is attempting to flee. And the rest of the smaller demons in the Vrox, follow the leader and are also trying to hightail it out of there. Fern darts after it, drops her bird form, and casts a 5th level blight to get the how do you want to do this. And it's this, really cool moment where she's describing like the vines tearing it up from the inside out, and it's basically cursing her as it dies. And all the rest of the smaller bad guys just run away terrified at this point. Now with combat essentially over, most of the party is going to free the prisoners inside of these cages. And inside one of them, Orym finds his sister, Bernie, and they embrace. She thanks him, and she reveals that she volunteered to lead the expedition for these flowers and knew of this bastion here, but didn't realize that it had fallen. And she reveals that the big leader demon was named Extovos the Gluttonous, and he yielded to a prince called Verudoluin. Definitely butchering that. And she's
Nailed
not
it.
sure if all of these prisoners were captured to be a part of whatever ritual was about to happen here, or if they were just captured to like eat and just, for pleasure. Genis, who is another prisoner and a Tempest Blade, goes and retrieves 2 backpacks full of the flowers that they had already collected. So together with what Bell's Hells had, they have enough to take back to Keyleth now. As everyone's kind of getting together, Chetney is like, hey, Ashari, like, do you recognize this sword that I just picked up? Because it doesn't look like it didn't look like it belonged to the demon. It seemed as if he stole it from somebody. But the Ashari is like, no, we don't recognize that. And while all this is going on, Fern is actually talking to that devil she made friends with, and she finds out his name is Tavon Klosh, Retribution of the Hells, and that he is a champion of Asmodeus. And he's like, who do you swear fealty to? And she's like, no one. But I did recently have this vision of the Matron of Ravens, and he kind of scowls at that mention, but
Yeah.
he's like, they're very strange times right now, and I've been instructed to treat with even those who walk under the light of the primes, provided they are not hostile. And he says, since you don't swear fealty to anybody, if you're interested, there are many gifts to be had on the path of Asmodeus, an eternity of purpose, strength, and pleasures for those who fall under his shadow. He then takes her hand and kisses it. And at the spot where he did, there's this like symbol burned on her knuckle of like a black crowned head. And he tells her, the path is open. You just need to accept the terms. Do you accept? And she does. So the pact is sealed, and he says they will meet again. Devon then tells the rest of the party that your leader is wise. The only reason like I didn't kill you all is because of her. He then flies up and away. Then everyone's like, what's going on there? But they're like, let's get out of here. But neither Barney nor Imogen can actually teleport them tonight. So they actually have to rest somewhere around here. So Barney uses stone shape and creates this cavern in one of the nearby rocks, ushers everybody in, and then closes the cavern behind them so that they are kind of safely inside of this rock. And here's where they're going to rest until the next morning. And that's where the episode comes to an end. And once again, this was episode 67 of Campaign 3, Bloody Flowers. And
Good job.
and link in the description for those of you that want to see the full episode if you're just on the recap.